everybody. You're listening to and watching, if you're joining us on the live stream, the Comic Book Bears podcast. I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
And I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
And we are your hairy, heavy homos that talk about comic books, but you don't have to be a hairy, heavy homo to listen in or possibly stream in. And we're back with you after our regular 2-week interval, and we're very pleased to have a special guest on the show tonight. If you all would please welcome Zackary Marois. Zackary is here to talk
Hello,
about
everybody.
Hey, there you go. And he is here to talk about his upcoming project, Voyage, which is going to hit a Kickstarter campaign really soon, and we're going to hear all about it. So, Zach, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, man. I'm actually tweeting this link out to everybody right now as we speak. Yeah. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh, not a problem, not a problem. Be very happy to talk to you about this. I tend to have a bad reputation of bogarting the interviews. So as things have gone on, I'm letting the other two guys drive more and more. So this is the virtual baton as if this was a relay. And Steve, I'm handing it over to you. So let's get this interview started.
Why, thank you. So one of the things that we tend to do when we have a guest on the show, whether this is their first time or maybe their third or fourth time, we like to ask the question, what got you into comics, whether it was cartoons, whether it was an actual comic book that you found, buried in basement somewhere, or, maybe a trip to a bookstore. What got you into comics, and also what kind of pushed you in the direction of, artistic endeavors in the comic realm?
It's funny you say that because, my book was Web of Spider-Man issue 66 by Alex Saviuk. On the cover, it's got Spider-Man, Molten Man, and Green Goblin, Harry Osborn on it, in one direction. But how it happened is, I used to live up in New Hampshire, moved down to Lowell, Massachusetts, and there was this comic store called Command D. It's still there. It's got paintings on the side of the building, and I have that background where, my father and I don't get along at all, and this is 5th grade. Never takes me out, doesn't, the whole thing. So we're on a hospital appointment. He's got to take his, his girlfriend at the time out for her appointment. So I'm in the car because we had to go. And I see this comic store, all these superheroes. I've never seen anything like that. Just completely, amazed me. And I'm freaking out, Dad, can we go there? Can we please go there? And he's like, oh, no, maybe if you, effing behave, in the hospital, maybe, I'll think about it, right? And I was like, dude, I was a quiet kid, man. I had my hands tucked underneath my butt, on the seat, the whole thing. My brother and sister are acting a fool, in the little waiting area. On the ride back, my heart's pounding, man, because, my dad, he'll say something, and most of the time he won't follow through. So, I'm like, oh, my God, he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. He actually pulled in. He pulled into the driveway, and I hopped right out, and I went in. And, dude, I'll tell you right now, you could take me to any place in the world. It's probably not going to ever capture the emotion and feeling that I had when I walked into that store. We're talking about you're looking at the ceiling that's not insulated at the top, and action figures on hooks, and it's rows and rows covered the whole ceiling, comics on all the walls. It was amazing. And I asked if there was any Spider-Man comics, and asking my dad to take me to one place is one thing, asking him for money, that's a whole other thing. So this book was $3, and I was like, Dad, can you please buy this? I don't, please, I'll do anything or whatever. And he just pulled out whatever cash he had in his pocket. He's like, whatever it is I got in my pocket, you can have. And it was $3, and I got that issue. I read that 20 times that same day, and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is the book that broke me into comics.
That's awesome. No, that's that's such a great story, and the fact that that first comic book store. I think the first time I ever read comics or saw comics was at a at a Walden Books or something like that, or at a not a 7-Eleven, but a Wawa's, growing, as a little kid in Pennsylvania. But the first time you step into like a dedicated comic shop, it's definitely an awesome feeling. My first one was Starship Excalibur in Lincoln, Rhode Island. It was the first time I
Nice.
stepped foot in like a dedicated comic shop in the malls, directly across from the arcade, right next to Papa Gino's. Not Papa John's, Papa Gino's. And yeah, it's small shop at the time, but to me it was like it could have been just the Batcave. It was just huge and amazing to me, But that's awesome. That's awesome. And so Spider-Man was kind of like your first superhero foray.
Yep.
What about non-superhero books? What
Okay.
what kind of drew you to like non, maybe Marvel and DC, or maybe something like a specific genre within there that's a little bit different from the usual superheroes?
So I was huge into the big two. And that was like, I had the whole mentality. I'm like, dude, I want to draw for Marvel. I want to draw for DC, one of the big two companies. And I started in my honest opinion, when I went to the Joe Kubert School, to get better at my craft, like that's when I really started breaking into the indie stuff. And it's such a shame that it took me to that point, because I missed out on great opportunity like reads like Invincible, Hellboy. Um, I mean, I read Bone in the library when I was a kid, so I'm not going to count that. Like, Bone's fantastic, but Bone is like the standard book that was in all libraries, so I just kind of leave that at default. But when it comes to like the really hardcore indie stuff, Dark Horse Comics presents to Zone, what is it, Scud? Like I was like, man, I'm missing out on like some of these cool reads. Like even the black and white comics like Xenophobic Tales by Mark Schultz, to oh my god, like all that stuff. I was like, damn, man, this is what I missed out on. It took me this long to break into it, because these are the things that are coming into movies and shows now. Because the big two, they're kind of washing away in the same, what's the word that you would call it? Because I'm fatigued, like from the big
Uh,
two, big time. Storytelling, stories that they tell that will beat you over the head with the same thing 20 different times. Whereas you go to these original comics and indie stuff, like it's amazing. And these guys, these creators, really, really stick true to the continuity of the characters to make sure that it will not screw up throughout the duration of their series. And
mhm,
that's, I gravitize towards that.
mhm. Yeah, so sort of like where it's creator owned. So basically, it's
Hmm.
this is my plan for this character. This is my plan for this book, and
Yep.
it continues through. Yeah, no, and that's good. I mean, that's a really that's a good thing that there are avenues for storytellers, whether artists, writers, combination, that want to present something that's outside of what one would expect from a Marvel or DC. And that's it. They've always kind of been there, but I think right now we really are in an explosion of just really amazing indie books. A lot of great publishers out there that, I guess, indie is one way of saying it's just not big too, but are really growing a lot of their books and everything
Because
that
the
they're
medium's more accessible now, right? Like things like
yeah.
the internet have allowed an avenue for folks to do self-publishing, to do things like Kickstarter,
Yep.
to do their work and to broadcast it without the publishing houses. And even if we're talking about, Instagram is another big one. But even if we're talking about, companies like Boom, companies like Dark Horse, Oni Press, and those kind of things, like they're able to pick up talent because the talent's now promoting themselves, and they don't have to rely on just that public sphere, the way that folks used to. You take your portfolio up to a comic convention, right? And you try to corner somebody to get to show an editor your work or something like that, right? Now we have the internet. It's just the medium is so much more accessible, and I
Yep.
think that's a big part of it.
You know,
That's pretty cool.
and it's a very controversial take, but COVID was probably one of the best things that's happened to the comic industry, because what it did is that it made it completely stopped Diamond in its tracks from muscling in on these companies. So companies started pulling out of Diamond, and then you go on to Kickstarter and Indiegogo. What were high-end projects? Like, they were funding like crazy, smaller books to hire like known names. And that's like when you really started to see a notice, not from us as comic readers, but average people. They started to notice that on social media more, and it was because of COVID, because everybody was inside, couldn't go anywhere, so that's exactly what they were going. I mean, dude, the Spawn Kickstarter action figure, everybody, that had eyes on everyone, to Miskatonic High, Cyber Frog, everybody was doing all this different stuff. And it was just crazy. I mean, I even did Voyage to the Call right after I got out of school, and it funded, you know. And so, and I know all the people that I know of that were also launching. Roland Mann with Silverline Comics was like pumping them out with people that I know. So yeah, like it was a good thing, like for the comic industry, because indie comics, it lets people know that this is the direction that people want to see in the industry. They're tired of the same boring stuff from the big two, and they want to branch out to all the other things.
Well, Berserker. I think we talked about this a couple shows ago about Berserker being the largest ever comic book, funded project on Kickstarter with, oh gosh, it was something like 1.2 million or something. It was just it was wild. It was a huge amount of, and obviously, Keanu Reeves being a really huge name, kind of helped bring the attention to that. But it really shows that this, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, those, socially funded projects really do have an audience out there, which is good. And sometimes, it might not be enough for, for a distributor like Diamond, or now we've got Lunar, and oh gosh, what's the other one? Well, I mean, Penguin, I guess, Random House Penguin. Yeah. But it may not be enough.
Yeah, I just was a Random House with Marvel.
Yeah. It's something, but it also allows them to also notice more. I mean, if somebody gets enough attention there, then it's one of the publishers can also take attention. And
just one thing I think is important to chime in. When you're talking about Kickstarters, again, the initial phase of COVID, everybody, stuck inside, and your attention goes, to certain places because, you need to be entertained. But that seems to have kept up. I mean, we've seen some really high numbers on Kickstarters related to comics since, we started getting back into, the regular grind of society so much. I mean, even last year with Hell Witch Forbidden, I mean, that was huge dollar numbers last year. So I don't think that's something that's necessarily going to go away. I think that's that's going to be a situation that's going to stay in place. It might wax and wane, depending upon the creators that do put their work up for fundraising campaigns, but I do think that's a dynamic that's pretty much here to stay.
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to mention we do have a few people who have joined us. There's a gentleman, Caleb Alexander McKenzie. I don't know. We don't post his comments here, but we've got John Westhoff in the house throwing out double dollar lures.
Hey, John.
And then we've also got another John, John Runyon.
Runyon.
Bears Assemble. Welcome, John.
John, you will want to stick around for my first book that I'm talking about. Let's just say that. John will want to stick around.
Awesome. And he might want to stick around for my book too. We'll see. But yeah, so I think that's I think that's really cool. That we're able to really see a lot more, um, creators that are getting their work out there, getting their voices heard. There are a lot of other online, I guess, webcomic providers as well. But we've also got, I think Caleb, you mentioned it, Instagram. There's a
Yeah.
couple people that I follow on Instagram who've been posting their comics for the past couple of years, and a few of them actually, I've gotten their Kickstarter, their actual published books as well. Santa Francis is one of them, is a great example of that. But I think this is pretty cool. But speaking of Kickstarter, and speaking of the book that you're here to talk about, the project that's coming up, tell us about Voyage.
Oh man. Okay. All right. Just gotta all right.
Yes, gotta loosen up. There we go.
So let me. I'm gonna start off with this. When you watch sci-fi movies and you read sci-fi comics, like, for example, like Predator, the movie, wouldn't it be cool to see the Predator as the main character of the movie, and he's on an alien planet, trying to like hunt down or is in a class warfare against an alien species like they do in the Dark Horse comics?
Mhm.
Like it's so tiring to see the same, where the humans in sci-fi stuff, are always the main character and they're the ones that win or do whatever. And the enemy is like the alien, and it's a sci-fi thing. Like they do it all the time, like even in comics. Like in sci-fi, it's always the human as the main character. And it would be so cool to see the alien be the main character. So I'm bringing that in. So Voyage is focused on this extraterrestrial species Cometan named Sonderon, who was exiled from his star system. And like an 18-year-old who think they know everything until they step out into the real world, then they know nothing. You are thrusted into this area where in his life where he just stepped out of his star system, and he's like a baby in the universe. So he's easily the one to get taken advantage of, to be manipulated, and anything else that can come his way that's in any form of wrongdoing. So there's so much lore, and it's hard to like I'm trying to figure out how to break it down. But basically, he's on a hero's quest to find these pieces called the Spear and Nod, and the Spear and Nod is the thing that unifies the universe once again, because a Sonderon species, his ancestors, is the reason why the universe is so fractured, it's so broken. So there's a lot of hatred to his kind, and no one has ever ventured out to see any of the Cometans, because that was the core point in the universe that everything started like to fall apart. And so it's considered a cursed system, which is why no one traveled there. So now Sonderon is the first of his species to leave, and he's got to find these pieces that is considered a dead religion that he only knows about in certain individuals that will go against him. And it's just going to be interesting to see where that takes, because I like to do this, I like to throw in things that can be new and unique on a sci-fi genre comic. I don't want to try and do the same repetitional thing that I see all the time. And yeah, that's like Voyage. Yeah, like that's
Okay.
yeah. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but it's so when I've been writing and creating this like for so long, like it's hard to break it down for that
Mhm.
elevator pitch for
Right.
2 minutes or so. And I'm still
Yeah.
getting used to it.
Well, and that is one of those things when it sounds like you've been working on it, like you said, the lore of it, so all the background and everything before you even jump into introducing us to the main character. There's all this other history. I've got a slideshow here for people who are watching us today, and also we do have Tony Gilkinson, who has joined us. Tony, Comic Book Bears Activate. Hey guys, hey Tony. So we are going to pop this up if I can add it to stream. There we go. Okay, so now it does say 15 days. It is actually not 15 days away.
Yeah.
What is the start date? Is May 1st, correct?
May 1st. So I think it's like 12 days now.
Yeah.
Like that was a
Counting
post.
down. It's coming.
Yeah,
Just 2 weeks, under 2 weeks.
Dude, I can't wait because this book is 48 pages. Because like if you're gonna be if you're an artist that doesn't have a huge following and you're trying to bring people's attention to a product that you're making and have them back it, you got to give them everything that you got for your first impression. So this book is, I decided to up the ante, make it 48 pages. So there's 2 stories. The first story is 32 pages. Second story is 8 pages. And I'm throwing in a lot of prints, posters, stickers. What else? Like variant covers and such, you know, just giving it everything I got. Because like the average tier is like, you know, I'm giving, let's say there's the average tier for like $35. You're going to get 2 books, like 3 digital books. It's a digital book bundle, a print, and I think like a signature and such. So yeah, I'm giving
lots
it
of
everything.
incentives. Lots of incentives for each tier, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, John
and,
Westhoff, John Westhoff, who's watching this too. He's an indie creator like yourself, and if you ever want to share Kickstarter stories, that's a guy who's got plenty of them.
Yeah. He's definitely, yeah.
So there's a few things I want to go back to. Now we see this slide. So Chris Campana did the variant. I was going to ask what role he played, or you know, and what all he did, because he's an amazing creator in his own right. I've actually got some OA from him. So I noticed that he was up there, but great job getting him to do a variant cover. Such a talented dude. But so I want to go back to, you know, your pitch for the book. There's a lot of context there, right? Like there's a lot of details. It's a very rich story. And like you said in your initial story, you've got 32 pages to do it. How did you go about kind of pacing the book and setting it up to where you're able to convey all of that? Because it is dense, it's deep, and I mean that in a good way. Like I like really rich contextualized, especially in sci-fi and space fantasy. How did you go about conveying all those things and kind of laying it out? Or like, you know, some people now are doing like text blocks. Did you opt for something like that, or are you just going straight sequential and just letting the magic do its thing?
So the best thing about going to the Joe Cooper School for me was the fact that I'm not a writer, I'm an artist. I don't know how to write in like script format to make it fluent in a comic. So I have with me my co-creator Brett Melograno to fine tune everything and help also create certain elements to make it flush through each single issue. So my approach to this is one thing that people don't like when they're reading comics. They don't want to sit there and have to read explanation after explanation of every single lore thing that you're throwing at them in a comic book. So you go straight to the fun stuff. So that's why I'm not even touching his origin. I'm going straight to the point where, you know, he's exiled. What's the first planet that he heads to right like the minute he leaves his system? So and it just focuses on there. So the first issue, the reason why it's 32 pages, because I want the reader to really feel and experience like how Sonderon is taking in the environment, because it starts off slow. It's a slow burn in the beginning where like he wakes up, he arrives at this planet, he's walking around the marketplace, and then next thing you know, because of his, you know, like naivety and, you know, just blatant, you know, disregard of the obvious around him, he was able to be what do you call it? These thugs are trying to take advantage of him. So as he gets ambushed, like at the marketplace, it sends him on this spiral of like one after another. So he starts to realize that there's more to his ancestral background than there's let off. There's more to this religion, to the spear. There's and he creates like a friendship along the way, but it leaves him with more questions than answers. So at the end of the issue, I'm not going to have the readers to sit there and be confused. I'm going to provide enough information where they understand it, but I want them to enjoy Sondron's entrance into the comic format. Now, this is my third book that I've done, but the first book I've done was an anthology book with Sondron. The second book I did was a 32-page, comic adventure Sondron, and it was a one-shot. And then people's like, we want an ongoing series. So then I had to step back and just be like, all right, now I got to start at this point. And I broke it up into arcs. So like all this stuff, I take it to every 6 issues an arc. And I got a climax that I'm building towards in the first 6 issues. So it's really well paced. And I'm not.
Yeah, so I didn't know about those 2 previous books. That's awesome because so it sounds like you've already got a little bit of a following that's coming into this with you. So that's going to be, I mean, that only works in your favor. That's fantastic.
I appreciate it. Like I don't think I have that big of a following for it. I believe in this character enough to the point where like this idea that I am just too stubborn to stop. And I do take advice and from everybody around me, and everybody says that they love the idea, that they love the look of the character. So I just kept pushing forward.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah.
So,
oh, sorry.
I was going to jump in. So Steve got your quote unquote comic book origin story just a minute ago, but we've also mentioned the fact that you're an artist by trade. You're a graduate of the Kubert School. So I kind of want to know your art origin story. So one of my favorite phrases that I've ever heard in my life came from an early childhood education person. And what they said is everybody can draw. Some people just stop way before others do. So and I've always loved that concept about art from a visual standpoint. Like we all start out as kids doing it, and then some folks like yourself just continue to do it and become quite talented at it. So when did you know that this was your thing? That this wasn't just something you did in kindergarten to pass time, but this was a way for you to get your voice out in the world?
I didn't start taking art seriously until I was 18 years old. Believe it or not, I got kicked out of the house because I was that much of a delinquent, and I went to Job Corps and I started doing art at Job Corps. And then, after I got out of Job Corps, I started getting my life back on track. But because Job Corps gave me the things that I needed to give me the beginning steps to start moving forward in my new life that I'm trying to improve, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to wait anymore. I'm going to start now on my artwork and take it dead serious. So, I pretty much went to my older brother because me and him were creating characters back and forth. And I was like, you know what? Screw this. We're just going to start what we're going to do. Let's just do it now. I don't want to wait anymore. And I started making these crappy comics. And after I went to Boston Comic Con in 2016 with these awful books, somebody from the show came up to me and they said, hey, the Kubert School does these summer programs, would you like to see like my portfolio? And I was like, what? The Kubert School? I never, I seen it as an ad in comics, but it's just kind of like a light bulb in my head. I remember after the show was over, I was in a depression, because being at the con, when I think it goes for anyone, that was my first show selling books and people were buying them and being super supportive. And when the show was over, the weekend just went too fast. It put me in a depressed state for a week. And I'm like, because it was like a drug rush. It was I was so high. off of it that I didn't want it to stop. And I'm like, I need to get this back. I want to do this. So I just kept pushing. So I was like, I need to go back to I need to go to the Cubert school. This is my direction. I need to take it. I got accepted, and the rest is history from there. Because that's when my art really started catapulting in improvement, was going to that school because I wanted to pay attention to it.
So I love that you married, your that first moment reading Spider-Man and stuff to that as well. So what was it about sequential storytelling? Because some people go in different directions, and they take art very seriously. Some people do it for commercial reasons. Some people just do still images. But comics is a very special thing in that it tells a story, and you take these images and words and you juxtapose them, and you lay out both a plot and tone in a way that no other visual representation can do. So what was it about like the comics medium that just grabbed you and wouldn't let you go?
Like, it's cheesy, but like, I have a very rocky background in the beginning, growing up as a kid, very rocky. And when I got introduced to comics, started reading the narratives, dude, and I'm gonna use Peter Parker, just the fact that this guy was struggling to pay his rent, everything was down on his luck. He couldn't get a girl, he couldn't, do the most simplest things because his alter ego took so much time, and it was just a constant balance into it. And it connected with me. It really resonated with myself. As a kid, I'm like, no matter what I was doing, I was screwing something up. Anybody who was looking at me, I was just like a complete, failure. And it just, I emotionally connected to the character, and I was addicted to constantly being escaped into that craft. And obviously, you have different characters. You have Batman and Superman. So reading those, stories. Comics just have it's hard to explain, but comics has this way, something may not grab you in the beginning. You may not like something now. When I was younger, I didn't like Superman. I thought he was the most stupidest character. Who cares about the damn Boy Scout? He's always got to be do the right thing, don't do drugs, the whole 9 yards. And I get older, and then I pay attention to the politics and how shitty life is, war and all that stuff, and I'm like, we need a Superman.
Yeah.
And then I start going, and I go back to the Superman narratives, and I start reading those, and then it gives me different aspects of life that I just grow fond of. So that's the reason that I fall in love more with the narrative aspect than sitting down watching TV. You can sit and watch TV for a couple hours, you get emotionally moved or whatever, but then that's it. That's the film's over. With comics, it's never stopped. It's a continuing soap opera.
And you have the benefit of being able to go back and check it out again, or unlike a movie, I guess you could hit pause, but you can, as a reader, you can kind of focus on things as long as you want or need to really get the full scope of it too. And that's one thing that I've always loved with it.
Exactly.
So,
well, and interestingly enough too, I mean, when it comes to comics, I think more so than a TV series or anything like that, readers can actually find themselves in a position where they may be able to contribute to that lore, can contribute to that history of that character. I mean, we know a lot of comic fans that then grow up to be writers or artists on the books that they loved growing up, and their input then becomes somebody else's first impression of that character. This is a story I always wish that Superman would do, or I always wish that the X-Men would do this kind of cool thing. I really like this one character, and then somebody ultimately is going to be reading that story and saying, hey, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do this too someday. Which is pretty awesome. We do have another person who just joined. Did want to bring her up. Dawn Brown. Hi, Zach.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hello.
Yeah, I was going to say, to what Zach was saying earlier, though, you do the thing where creators look at the characters like Superman and these other big two characters, and they decide to hold the mirror up to it and say, okay, what's the doppelganger of this, or what's the stories that can't get told here, and what would that character be like if it was, just like I said, using the Hellboy example, what if it was a demon who was the key to ending the world, but had the same heart, or to talk about Voyage, what if this is the Predator, but with a little bit of emotion and a little bit of empathy thrown in there to make you like look at what the world would be like through their eyes, and like they're just doing the thing that they're supposed to do and trying to survive. Like I think that's great. Like that is one of the things about from the top down, the industry again, it's about accessibility, and that's not just accessibility for us as readers, but it's about the accessibility of being able to tell stories. Anybody can do this. And, to some extent, lots of people are going to do it better than others, but anybody can do. My niece can make comics with a piece of paper and a pencil, and get those things out that just need to come out. And so that's what I think about doing this and doing what you're doing, which is going the Kickstarter or going the crowdfunding route and say, hey, be a part of this, help me. Let's make this thing live.
And I agree to all that. I almost fell into that rut where when I was at the Cuba school, when I first went in, people do need a sense of realization, because these characters that are already in these comics, like Spider-Man, Batman, when people break into comics reading them and they're trying to become artists, they want to be like, oh, I can't wait till I get hired by one of these companies so I can do Spider-Man or Batman and tell my version of the story. Like, forget it, because like it was something I wanted to do to some extent, but then when I got into school, I was like, nah, because they're not going to hire your original or your version of said existing character. You got to bring something from yourself to the table, because that's what they care about. And people just don't want to see that, because they're going to, they don't care about it. They want to see something new and unique. You got to bring something that makes you stand out. So that's why I started really focusing on some of the old characters I was just creating years ago. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to like really just stick on this. So yeah, like Voyage, dude, I had pages and pages I've just drafted over, rewrote constantly. There was a version of this character that looked completely different, and I just overhauled the design. And people who are trying to get into the industry, you got to do something of your own. Don't do a version of a superhero that's already existed.
Yeah. Social individualism to it.
Yeah.
So with
Bill,
I was going to say, I saw you drawing earlier. So is the book done traditionally, or are you working on a Cintiq? I couldn't tell what you were working on back there. Is there going to be inlay involved in this?
I'm a traditional artist. I do some digital stuff, but I'm penciling this traditionally. My inker's doing it digitally, and my colorist obviously digitally. But
as someone who's sitting in a room full of original art, God bless you.
Dude, I'll tell you, like, I love this. It's like I love the sound of the pencil scratching against paper. I love, I want to display some of it on my wall in the future. Who knows? Plus, to me, I like adding the really small details that I can achieve in pencils. I'm not quite comfortable yet to do it completely digital, so that's why I still stick to traditional. But I was working on this. I don't know if you could see. Yeah, you can't see it. And where I just started, it's page 17. I got 16 more pages left to pencil, but essentially, I would have to say 60% of this book is done. It will be pretty much this book will be wrapped up by the end of June. Because the delivery expectancy date for this campaign is going to be the end of August to the beginning of September. So the bonus story is finished. All the in-between stuff is finished. It's really just me getting 16 more pages of pencils done, and having my artist and my inker and colorist wrap that up and get the letters like slapped onto it.
Cool.
Okay, I'm going to chime in with a couple of questions because I've been patient.
Yeah, I was going to say you're pretty quiet. Pretty quiet.
So, yeah. Well, I enjoyed the questions you guys were coming up with. The first thing that struck me about these images, Zach, is that logo. Is that something you designed? Because that's a grabber.
I actually I did some foundation pencils to it, but a buddy of mine who only went to 1 year at the school actually did the finalization to that logo. And
Okay.
so it was a team effort for it, because again, like, it's not just the story. Like, when you're trying to make it into a comic, your title needs to be simple. In my opinion, it's got to be short, like, short, sweet, and simple, and it's got to have. It's not something like you got to like half-ass on. You need to have it unique, stand out, so when people see it, boom, they can remember it right off the bat. They type it in on the internet, they can find it. And your cover art, like, needs to be there. Your cover needs to be there.
Okay. And you also mentioned that, that you're an artist and you're not a writer, and this is, you've been, kind of cultivating this project for some time now. Did you ever think about bringing in a writer to work on this, or was this, an issue of control and you just wanted to make sure that you guided every aspect of it?
I will be honest, there is some sense of control, but
Hmm.
um I do write, but my writing isn't strong. I know how to convey the story on paper without having to write it out completely. But it's the dialogue. It's, some of the things to like really finalize it. And my buddy Brett Malagrano, who was my classmate at the school, dude, this man can come up with ideas and write scripts and story plots like within a half hour, seconds, minutes. Like, he's born, that was his gift. Like, writing is his thing. And I asked this dude, I was like, dude, can you help me figure this out? Because I have dude, I had like a binder of like stuff. He looked at it, read it. He's like, give me a sec. He spent like 30 minutes, comes out of his room, and he gives me this 5-page, like, solidified story for him. And it just blew my mind. And I was like, dude, you want to be the writer for this run with me? And he was like, yeah, I would love to. So even though I was doing this for years, what Brett's additions was that he added into it, and my artwork, when you guys read this, that's your first impression of the character. And Brett contributed to the creation of that. So he's just as much as a creator to this character as I am.
Mhm. And you'd mentioned also that there were points where the lead character looked very different. As you've been going through this process of creation, sometimes it's organic. Sometimes the characters or the narrative flow goes to places that you didn't necessarily anticipate. Was that the case at any point with this? Did you surprise the storyline or the centralized characters maybe surprise you about where the trajectory of the story would go?
When it does surprise me, it does.
Mhm.
And the reason for it was, when I write, like, I'm very detailed heavy and I pour so much into it. And the guy who helped me design that logo, he said one thing and it resonates still to this day. He goes, dude, no one cares about all the stuff that you're writing. No, if you're going to go ahead and do this character, people want to see the cool shit. Forget all that stuff. Just, forget about trying to start from the beginning. Just do what you envision and you imagine in your head that makes this character cool. So when I did the one shot comic, of Sonderon doing cool stuff, not even focusing on that lore, I started picking stuff up that I was doing in that comic that I was integrating into the actual series. Because it was like, oh, that's cool. Now I know what to do for his ship design, or for what what he says, or like who's his parents, right? Like stupid stuff. It's like, now I know how to unify that and add it into my regular lore stuff. So when I got into issue 1, it just flowed. So when that's like having to think about, oh, one of the characters named Italia, she's like this alien peacock chick that, pretty much interrogates Sonderon. They become like friends, in parentheses later in the book, you know, throughout the series, but I was trying to figure out how to fit her in. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to focus on Sonderon just walking in the marketplace. He's going to do his own thing. And that's when I figured out, I was like, Italia's going to step in there. Some of these designs that I did, like, back in the day, I'm going to fit those there. So it naturally came in.
Okay, and another question I have, as you can tell from the gray here, I'm old as sand. Most of the Kubert School graduates that I'm close to were, graduates in the 90s. And with the way that the actual creation process of comics has changed, a lot of inking now is digital, almost all lettering is digital, almost all coloring is digital. Is that a part of the curriculum of creating comics on a digital platform
Oh
at
man.
Kubert now?
So the Kubert School has gone through a lot of changes.
Mhm.
My tenure at the place, I was fortunate and unfortunate, because I was stuck during that time where the change was happening, like major
Mhm.
changes, where the Cuperts were being bought out, and the new owner was stepping in, Anthony Marquez, who used to be the editor of Dynamite Comics, and and the man has done amazing things with the Kubert School. Like I mean, it's no longer a credited school. He's bringing it back to the old days, where it's just a trade school, basically. You only go to that place if you really want to make comics. So he's stripping down certain things about it that was stale, and it was getting too old and tiresome for all of us as students, and he's providing the things to make it better. And actually, hopefully, like pretty soon, that the Cooper School will be highly respected again, like extremely. Like so, you know, I'm excited. Like he's integrating all those things that that you had questions about, like implementing like a lot of the digital stuff, making sure that these students, even first year students, really understand, like digital inking, digital coloring, how to make a book, because like I'm gonna be honest, like there's something one of the things that I wish I was taught that should like it shouldn't have been a course, but it should have been something that was taught into a class like every single year, was crowdfunding campaigns. Like
Mhm.
that's a thing that I firmly believe, and it was just something that one of the instructors like would talk about and explain that it's not an easy thing, and you got to worry about the shipping, and it was just kind of it was like, I'm like, damn, I get out of school, I had to learn that stuff, I
Yeah,
had to do
Yeah.
everything.
that's interesting. I haven't ever even thought about. So when I think about the Kubert School or think about SCAD, I think about actually like putting pen to paper and creating images and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Do they
Not
teach any of the
necessarily fulfillment issues. Yeah.
Yeah, do
Yeah.
they teach marketing? Are there any are there any do they teach anything like that? I know they didn't do just crowdfunding and stuff, but is there a marketing
Marketing.
and publishing aspect to it? I've never even considered that.
So like the marketing, like so like some of the things that I had issues with at the school when it came to some of the subject, and I'm not knocking on the school for the people that are listening. These are just my honest things about it. Is the business class was very behind on the things that was happening in comics today. Very behind on it. Um the marketing aspect of getting yourself out there, another thing is there wasn't up to date technology. Like nobody, like when we went in, we had a tablet. We go into class, we had to bring our own tablet into where every student, there should have been, like, in the digital classroom, there should have been a settee for every student sitting down. There should have been one, but there wasn't. And it's just like basic things like that, that wasn't there, and it
Yeah.
should have been. And like I said, Anthony Marquez, this man has implemented all that stuff, and he works his ass off like day and night to make sure to bring the light back at the Kubert School, to be extremely respected like it once was, because it kind of died down, and like I felt it to some extent. But again, it's things happen. It's life, and it is what it is. I'm not gonna cry about it, but the things that need to be worked on in that place is being worked on.
Good. That's cool. I'd never even considered that aspect of it, man. That's good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're approaching the hour. Yep. Steve, whatever.
Yeah.
you
Well, I
want to
just
say.
wanted to say really quickly because I did include it here. One of the things that you've also kind of promoted for the Kickstarter is the art contest here. And there's a list of rules and things here that you will have listed in the Kickstarter. But could you talk a little bit, just real quick, about that? The involvement of other people, fans and backers, in this art contest.
So for everybody that's that wants to join in, they can do a Sandra an art piece, and they just submit it to me through my social media. And the winner, like by the end of the campaign, I'm gonna go through all the images. I think I'm gonna run a poll, so people will vote which piece is the best piece. And the winner of that piece will be featured on the Kickstarter campaign for the rest, because once a campaign funds, it's there on that site forever. So it's going to be on the website. It's also going to be in the book. It'll be print. There's one page dedicated to the winner. They'll also get secret rewards. So I'm not going to tell those secret things. So, but there'll be some cool stuff. I will be throwing some extra stuff in there, like whoever, because it's free. It's art that they're taking their time out of to contribute. So I'm going to reward that. Whoever wins, like they're gonna get some stuff, and they'll be invited on the podcast show.
Zach, I'm totally going to send you one, but I can't draw, so it's just going to be a chubby stick figure. But I'm hoping podcast nepotism will kick in. I want those secret rewards.
That's awesome. And real quick, there are a couple other example covers, example variants that you provided here, and just wanted to kind of put these images up there because it is pretty dang cool, and I'm really, really excited for this.
It's like my colorist is taking the Mobius style approach on the color palette, and I didn't think it was gonna work. And once he submitted the pages in, I was like, damn, like it's simple and it's working, because I add a lot of detail into my narratives, and it tells the story really well. And this image is a perfect example of that Mobius style choice.
It's awesome. Cool.
Back to 4.
Back to 4.
All right, Steve, we're approaching the hour mark, so let's give you that baton back for reels there, and you start wrapping this interview up, because I'm sure there's a couple of the bits you might want to cover before we.
Yeah, definitely. So, like what I think we had mentioned a little bit earlier, May 1st is when the Kickstarter goes live, which at the time that we're recording and streaming live, that's just about 12 days away. So, keep your eye out for that. We will post the link on the Comic Book Bears Facebook page as well, and where we have our show streaming. So, and of course, the audio version will have that as well, the show notes. But yeah, so is there anything else that you kind of want to tell our listeners or anybody viewing? Another reason why they should check out The Adventures of Sandaron in Voyage.
So for all the people that are listening, I definitely appreciate you guys tuning in and hearing us talk about this book and just comic stuff in general, because that stuff is always fun. One of the reasons that I think that they should back it if they're interested is the fact that this character is the alien who is the main character of this book, and there's no humans in it at all whatsoever. Just imagine Indiana Jones in space. That will tell you what this series is going to be. It's just a bunch of hijinks and misfits with this character, and it's going to be a lot of fun, man. The quality is there. It's 48 pages, a bunch of extra incentives to these tiers. What more could you ask?
Awesome. Well, any other final questions for Zach? And we'll.
Well, no, I just wanted to make a comment as somebody who has had a successful Kickstarter. Just be prepared that you're going to have a second full-time job, for a particular window. And I know it's not the easiest thing ever about, kind of distilling something that you're laboring on, into a couple of sentences that pop, but I think you did very well here, and I wish you the best of luck with this campaign.
Thank you, man. And it definitely is a second job, dude. I don't go to bed till 2-3 in the morning consistently.
Well, wait till you have to start mailing stuff.
Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, I'm not mailing it. I got somebody to take care of that.
Oh, that's good.
Good, you're good. I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, Caleb.
Yeah. I want to say congratulations, man. You have created something. You have put something out into the universe. That is a big step. It's a step that a lot of people don't make. So the fact that you've done that already is phenomenal. So that, I know a lot of people are telling you good luck and they hoping the Kickstarter does everything. I just want to say congratulations for what you've already done.
Because you've already reached a certain plateau.
Yeah, you did it, man. You birthed something into the universe. You created art, and a narrative and a story and a dream, and you brought that and made it tangible, and that's pretty fucking awesome.
Birthing a big purple baby is kind of tough, though. That seems kind of painful.
I will say, to add to what you were saying, Caleb, it's there was a quote that completely stuck with me, is that there was a motivational speaker, and he says, when you're on your deathbed, are the ideas and creations that could have been, are they going to be upset with you because they, or are they going to be happy with you? Or because he was they're going to, when you're on your deathbed and you're dying, and you haven't done anything in your life, your ideas and creations, they're going to stare down at you upset. We gave you everything you needed. All you had to do was just do the work, and you did it. Now we have to die with you. And that was whoa. So that's why that spoke to me. I don't wait on anything. I just go right into it.
Awesome. Well, hey, I want to give some more love to one of your co-creators, though. So for the folks that are backing this, if you can get the Chris Campana variant cover, number one, it looks great. So kudos to you for linking him to this project, because again, he's an amazing artist. But if you haven't ever read his story, The Adventures of Parker Reef, that is something that he also picked it up. You're gonna want to check that out. It is one of the maybe handful of comics that I can actually say have made me actually openly wept.
Wow, really?
And not just single tear. I put that book down, closed it, and had a grown man crying moment. Just inconsolable for several minutes.
Awesome.
So there's so much in that book. So excellent work by you. Great work picking out your co-creators and tagging them to this book. So that's badass. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, cool. Well,
all right, we're gonna keep moving on with the show and talking about some recent comics. Zach, you're more than welcome to stay on with us if you want to. But if you have stuff to do, we totally understand that. You got pages, so it's all up to you.
I'll stick for a little bit longer. I don't mind that.
All right, cool.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Now, do any of us have a Big Two book?
I don't.
I
I
do.
have one, but it's like I'd rather talk about the independent book first.
Yeah,
Like stuff that I said before.
You know what?
Let's go on
I
our
think that's
classic
good.
mode, and Steve, you just talk about the book you want to talk about. Caleb, you do the same. I'll do the same, and then we'll take it from there. If we have enough time for a second book, it might be a Big Two. I'm reneging on stuff that I decreed earlier, but that's okay. Rules are made to be broken. And also, I just want to say we're not going to have a news segment today. And I think a lot of that is because we've had back-to-back episodes with creators. But I think we'll bring back the news segment next time. Maybe compile some stuff, whether it's like incredibly newsworthy or not. Because I think we've made chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Alex Ross sneezed last week, guys. That's
slow news day. So that segment will be back next time. Okay, Steve, let's start with you. Tell us about a book you're reading that you're digging.
Well, this one's actually pretty. I can be pretty quick with this one. This is The Seasons Have Teeth, #1, just released by Boom Studios here. This is a book written by Dan Waters, drawn by Sebastian Cabrol, and colors by Dan Jackson, and of course letters by Nate Picos, if I'm pronouncing that name correctly. This is a very interesting book. I do not want to talk too much about it because I don't want to give away too much of the story. It has some beautiful pages in here, but I cannot show them to you because if I did, it would probably ruin, again, the surprises in the story. So, in any case, this book is basically about a gentleman named Andrew, who's a photojournalist in England, and he's in a small village. We find him in a small village, talking with, I believe, his editor. Doesn't really specifically state that, but just talking about the season is coming. The town is being abandoned and evacuated. Everybody's leaving because the season is almost here, season of spring, which seems very strange. I mean, why people would want to get out of town just because of a change of seasons. But in this world,
you don't live in Arkansas.
Well, yeah. I mean, like summer in the South period, it's like, the hair starts to frizz and it's like, no, 100% moisture every day. No.
Dude, I snorted a line of pollen before we started the podcast. Like
the oaks. It's the oaks, man. They're late this year and they just decided to dump it all at once. But yeah, I mean, basically it's like that. Think about that, but think about it much worse. Because in this world, when the season changes, nature goes absolute batshit wild. It thorns and bushes and strange plants grow up everywhere, destroying buildings made of stone, crushing things around them, and of course entrapping or ensnarling anything living that happens to still be there. And Andrew, of course, he's lost his wife Cindy, and people are worried about him. But he's a photojournalist. He's there because he wants to capture something that no one else has. He wants to be on the front lines of what's happening in nature. And throughout this book, he basically is traveling through town, seeing the effects of this change of seasons in a very impactful way. And of course, several beautiful splash pages and an amazing, just a very great image for the end, which I do not want to spoil for you. Definitely pick this book up. I'm sure we're going to see various aspects of this world through the eyes of Andrew. But it's gorgeous. The cover work, and I'm trying to see who did the cover. There's several other variants in this, but Christina Kalita did this absolutely gorgeous cover. I absolutely recommend this. I knew nothing about this book going in. I was not disappointed at all for picking it up off the shelf, just out of curiosity. So, Seasons Have Teeth by Boom Studios.
Now, since most of the Dan Waters stuff I've read has been the DC stuff, has been the Lucifer and the Sword of Azrael and all that. is it like ensconced in that sort of twisted world perspective?
No, you know what?
Okay,
There's something.
that's
You know,
interesting.
there's obviously there's a bit of melancholy, which does come through a lot, especially when you read Lucifer. But there's a bit of melancholy there with the main character of Andrew. He's lost the person that's most important to him in his life, and there are several flashback scenes with with this person.
Mhm.
But there's also that kind of interesting determination in this character where he knows he shouldn't be there. He knows it's dangerous, but he's doing it for her and her memory, but also to just experience something unique that he doesn't think that others have really truly experienced in a way, and in this case, possibly experienced and survived.
Mhm.
But it's an interesting story, and I don't know if it's that similar to other things that Dan's written before,
Mhm.
but the direction that it's going, I'm intrigued. So
All right, cool. All right, over to Caleb. Caleb, tell us about something you're reading that you're enjoying there.
Yeah, so I read a little graphic novel here this past week that, well, let me put it this way. I can't say that I like this book, but I certainly appreciate it. It's a very bleak book, so it's hard to say that I like this. Like I don't necessarily need chapter 2 of this book. It's a very bleak kind of thing, which is fine. But it certainly had moments to appreciate, and it comes from a publisher that I was unfamiliar with before this past week, and it's a newer publisher from what I can gather, and it's called Living the Line. That's who published this fine book, and the book is called House on Fire by, and my apologies if I mess up this name, by Matt Battaglia, is how I think it's pronounced. But this book, I it, I certainly appreciated my time with it, and I want to caveat that with if you are looking for a certain level of escapism beyond anything that resembles the past like 5 years of your life, this may not be the book for you, because it is a kind of horror noir story, um, based in the not too distant future where the world got wrecked by something, and everything shut down, and you have to wear a mask when you go to places, or you're not allowed into certain things, and like they take your temperature when you enter into a city. So if you're not looking for a dystopian what the world could have been if COVID had a went worse ways than it went, this isn't the book for you, right now. That doesn't necessarily bother me in the sense that I appreciate art that reflects life sometimes. That if I'm in the mood for it, I don't necessarily need it to be total escapism all the time. And sometimes I like the Black Mirror, so to speak. Like I like stories about what where it could have went. Um, the story in a nutshell: you start off in kind of a rural area. There is a man and his partner, his spouse, his wife. And they are laying in bed, and he tells her he's got to go. It's time. He has to go to the city, and she's wearing an oxygen mask as she's doing this. So just right away you realize that something is terribly wrong, and you find out she's sick. And the reason that he is going into the city, the reason that he's going into kind of this occupied territory, for lack of a better way to put it, is because he's going to buy black market medicine from somebody there, and he's going to smuggle it out and take it back to his spouse. So I don't want to. It is a very slim plot with a lot of just emotion piled into it. So spoilers, I guess, for something like this, but that's the story in a nutshell. And as he goes on this journey to a city that the skyline looks a lot like New York. In some of the images, you kind of see something resembling the Empire State Building in the background. So as he's crossing in, possibly from Jersey, to this area, he has to go through checkpoints, and he's in an old raggedy truck, and he's passing decrepit, urban waste and urban decay. As he gets to the checkpoint, he has to bribe his way in, and he hands the guy cash, and the guy's like, "Your work permit's the wrong color. You can't get in. We're under a code orange." And he's like, "Oh, I'm new to this route. Here's," shakes his hand, passes money. I only need till 10 o'clock. The paperwork hadn't come in yet. And the guy's like, yeah, I got you. So like, just in order to travel, you've got to go through, there's corruption at every turn. And as he journeys through the city, he gets to, he goes to the bowels of the city, and, looking a lot like a drug deal kind of situation where he meets with somebody and he trades them something that I can imagine would have a lot of value in this world. And it's probably not something that we necessarily would appreciate now, but it is something that's become something that we think of as commonplace, as probably a delicacy in this world, which I thought was really cool. And he trades it for this canister of medicine. And the guy tells him, the shots are good for a week, if you keep it closed. So get back to where you're going. From that the story kind of takes a turn, and it goes to where he's loading the stuff up and he's jumped. And you just know through the quiet contextualization of the story that his wife's going to die if she doesn't get this. And I thought that, like, oh shit, like this is going to get real dark, but it doesn't. Well, it does in a sense, but he's able to kind of fend his attackers off, and he takes a life. And this is, when we think of Wasteland, we think about Walking Dead, you think about all these other things, these shows that depict the wasteland, and they're just dropping bodies like it's nothing, left and right. Like there's a ton of death in it, and all of a sudden everybody's just cool with being a serial killer to some extent. This takes a different look at that. This takes, this man is living through hell. This is probably something that happens a lot, but it still disturbs him to no end, to know that he's just taken a life. He's defending his family, he's doing what he has to do, but he didn't want to do it to this extent, not like this. And even though it was a, stand your ground moment, if you will, for lack of a better term, a kill or be killed moment, he still didn't. He tries to save the person. And there's a lot more into the story. Again, I don't want to spoil too much. I think it's great. The art style to this kind of monochromatic thing that they do really plays off. And yes, the title does actually, again, it plays into the story. So if you're wondering how, that weird thing I just said, how it lays out, how it connects to the term house on fire, the point is driven home with it. But it's got a little bit of a Declan Shelby vibe to it. I think there's some Paul Pope in this, in the way that...
Yeah. When you were giving the description of it, and again, just going on the images that you provided here, but then also going on the description that you gave of the plot being fairly thin, but the level of emotional complexity being fairly robust.
Right.
I believe we talked about this book, The House by Paco Loca.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of vibe I was getting, where the actual storyline is limited, but it also comes with 78 years of emotion in there, and that kind of feeling of walking through your own past, and kind of calculating how things have changed, and that providing a different way for you to behave in the present day. That's the vibe I was getting, and it was making me more and more interested.
Yeah. I can't agree more with that. I mean, that's
okay. Cool.
You nailed it, and it's got that. It's a character-driven story, which is interesting because it's not a wordy story. So much of, I'll show you pages, like, there's no words to this. It is the dialogue is sparse. There are no, there's certainly no text boxes or anything, but it's still a character-driven story, which I'm just kind of, from a literary sense, I love the fact that you're able to connect with it, and the characters have no names. Like, that's how detached that it can be, but it is such a broad look that zooms in so close to these people's lives, using the sequence of events, and Matt did a fantastic job laying out the pacing in the story and to get you there. Those fine details, and Zach was talking about this earlier, just layering in the right details at the right moment. You come to know this person on a very close level, on a very individualistic. You're having a conversation with this man. You know what his life is about and like, and you don't know his name, and you don't know his spouse's name. You don't really know where you are. But that was one of these kind of Jack London is a great kind of thing. Like it is this calm, quiet, impending doom over everything. That kind of gets you to where you're going with this. So I highly recommend it. So do some other folks. I mentioned it had a Declan Shelby vibe. Declan Shelby actually gives a blurb on the book. J.H. Williams J.H. Williams III also gives a blurb on the book. So there's lots of folks. Chris London, who worked on that Texas Blood, had some great things to say about it. So check it out. I think it's a fun read, and I'm curious to see what else comes from this company. Again, so I'm looking for more of their stuff. It is Living the Line is the publisher.
Okay, cool.
That's pretty sick.
All right. I'm going to talk about a book from American mythology, and it's one of the rare books from American mythology that isn't a licensed book. Huh. As far as I know, I mean, a lot of their properties are, kind of dead properties. The Three Stooges, Bullwinkle, Pink Panther, that kind of stuff. But they put out a book called Monster Tag Team. And Steve, I think you have a graphic that you can put up. And my head immediately went to John Onion. And if you know John, and I apologize if I'm taking a woof or anything away from somebody, but he did announce that he is going to have a Comics by Night video series that's going to specifically cover Marvel horror, at least in the initial stages. I'm not characterizing that wrong, Steve, right?
No. He's definitely going to be leaning into that sort of Silver Age,
okay.
And
so what you have here with Monster Tag Team, if Marvel Team Up or Marvel 2-in-1 had not gone to Spider-Man and the Thing and went squarely with the supernatural characters, this is the book you would have. So much so that it's even set in 1972. So each issue of Monster Tag Team is going to be done in one, effectively a team up between two different occult-based characters. And here, this time around, it's Wolf and Bat, as they are abbreviated. As you can see, there's the werewolf that's being strangled by a kind of Dracula-ish guy. Spoiler, this doesn't take place in the comic book, but the spirit of it does. But what happens in the comic book is we're in 1972. The Cold War is still happening, but there is an enemy that both the Russians and the Americans not only want, but need to band together to combat, and that's the occult. So what they do in the KGB and the CIA is they have an occult division. And on the U.S. side, there's a woman named Jessie Walker, a CIA-trained werewolf. And over in Russia, we have Vlad Dracul, who goes by the name of Zemi. We don't know exactly why, and there's a kind of tongue-in-cheek reference to how he got that nickname that hopefully we'll see at some point down the road if this character does reappear. But yes, he is Vlad the Impaler. He is the original Dracula. And there is an organization that has infiltrated many areas of modern society called Warlock, and something big is going down. So they send Wolf and Bat to figure it out. There is a countdown within the book where it's the number of days to the how did they characterize this? Oh Jesus, it was cool. How many days and minutes before ritual completion? That was the way that they characterized it. And this, it feels like a Bronze Age book, but it feels like a really good Bronze Age book. And the ability to tell done in one stories, I think, is, it's in danger of becoming a lost art. Let's face it. In the age of decompression, we're still in it. So we we don't have that many examples that are currently being published. And from what I understand with this particular series, they're basically going to come out as they're ready. It's not going to be like a monthly or a bi-monthly schedule. But for a first issue, this hit every mark you want a first issue to hit. The writer is Constantine Paradies, and the artist is Gerardo Gambone, and some really nice work. I'm gonna just see if you can see a page here. But poor Jesse is kind of being parachuted out with a coffin. Well, guess who's in the coffin? And it's just very good action scenes, but also very good character moments. I have no idea how I pre-ordered this, but it was in the DCBS box, so there must have been something in that solicit that jumped out. And especially if you love Marvel horror from the 70s and stuff like Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night and the Frankenstein monster, this is right in that wheelhouse. But it's also written from a much more contemporary perspective, even though it's a story set in 1972. And I want you all to get this, because this was really, really fucking good.
As you're talking about it, it sounds like it's like Project Superpowers meets the Universal Monsters.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I was going to say.
It is a little bit in that, that there's. I mean, the great thing that Project Superpowers did. I mean, that sense of world building, like even in the first 8 pages, it was just like this universe you just never saw it before. And you do have that feel, and that they did lay out a template of where. I'm not sure if every story is going to be set in the past, but they did lay a template where it certainly is fertile ground for future stories. But yeah, I mean, that they are variations of public domain characters, and I can see that. But really liked it. I know John's going to go nuts for it if he.
Oh, he's already said it. Sounds like he needs it.
Yeah,
exactly.
I like horror. I like horror, and I'll tell you right now, sci-fi and horror are like the two biggest genres that are starting to come back. But those subject of stuff that's coming for those genres out little by little now is not hitting the mark. So to hear that there's something out there that's hitting the horror mark, and they're doing the traditional take and they're freshening it up, is actually amazing.
Well, we've been finding some really great horror books out. Vault's been putting out a lot of great stuff. We talked a lot about on this show too. A lot of great series that are from some of them from writers that I wouldn't necessarily expect it from, but we've gotten some really good books here and there. But
I'll agree with you though on sci-fi. I haven't really had like a really satisfying sci-fi book in a while. Like maybe Trillium was the last one that really
all the way back to Trillium, which by the way was amazing. I really enjoyed Oblivion Song. But I know it took it. There were gaps. There were gaps that took a while for it to come back, and that's kind of tough. And of course, Saga is always amazing, but again, they take those long breaks. And
I don't see Saga as sci-fi. Saga's science fantasy. That's like the Star Trek versus Star Wars argument.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider it sci-fi, but yeah,
it's
I gotta
hard.
say, Decorum in the beginning kind of had a potential, but it completely it takes the book is done amazing. It's fucking brilliant, but the problem with it is that it's so. What I said earlier is that it's so information overload on the stuff.
It's very hard. It was a very
very dense.
I'm like,
I looked at that book and did not know what was happening.
Oh yeah,
exactly.
It looked great, but if you told me what the plot was, I'd be like, there's an egg, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to
it takes the fun out of reading it because I couldn't figure it out. And even though when I was trying to, I had to read everything. So
I was right there with you, man. That book threw me for a loop. But I got every issue. I flipped through the pages. I wasn't going to miss anything.
They're really, it's so
and there was a plot there. It was like you said though, it is such a broad and insane. It's like trying to understand the sociopolitics of Dune without having anybody narrate to you. It's just like, what the like? Why is there a floating man?
Yeah.
What is this child?
Well, Zach, is there any current book that you might want to recommend?
It's for mature readers, so like definitely this one's an 18.
We're mature and we're readers, so that's okay.
You know, like, no, like the dude's name is Ed Piskor, and he has a run called Red Room.
Yep.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, man, I haven't seen an artist really pull off extreme body horror the way that this man does in Red Room. It's amazing. Like I love, like he's super creative with like the torture scenes, and he does it in a way where it's not like it's horror porn. He's telling the story, you know, and he's making it, you know, fluent where the reader is getting that horror aspect and be like, damn, that's gruesome. And then, you know, you're like, oh, you know, like, how is this continuing? So you're following off like these different single individuals that's part of the Red Room. So each issue is focusing on a different character. You know, either from that used to, you know, start the Red Room thing back in the day in the 80s, 60s, whatever. Or they're a character that is like in, you know, the early 2000s or whatever, or they're a victim of a parent that died from a Red Room, you know, torture film, and they're just they focus on that individual's life and see how it perverses them, you know, in that lifestyle, and it just takes you on a wild trip. Like I love how the way he tells that story, like Red Room, like every issue just does not hold back at all whatsoever, and even the characters have good designs to their look, so it's not generic.
The chat room, the chat room panels crack me up. It's just the people talking shit to one another is like, you know, and knowing that they're paying, they're paying crypto to see somebody get murdered, but they're just like, it's the most juvenalian shit talking ever. Just like those cracked me up, especially in that first issue.
The one that I did, so I read and I talked about on this show, Trigger Warnings, which was the spinoff, and I thought it just was not so great. My opinion of it was, and this is the spinoff, not the main book. It just, to me, almost felt like an X-rated Cracked, like if you remember Cracked magazine, not Mad magazine, but Cracked magazine. Like one of their 2 or 3 page stories.
You mean the book that you would get if Mad was sold out?
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, I used to get both of them. I would get my
and it shows.
Who is the janitor? Who's the janitor?
Fuck do
you
I
had
know?
Alfred. Well, because you had like Mad Magazine had Alfred P. Worrell, but then you also had the janitor who was like
Alfred E. Newman.
There was also Marvel's Crazy too.
That Crazy, yeah.
Crap. Yeah.
But trigger warnings for me just didn't hit for me. I just thought a lot of it was maybe they were trying to recapture what Red Room was and just kind of do the same thing again. I don't know. But that was me. That was for the spin-off book, so
no, I get it. Like, I definitely know that book is not for everybody. Like, it definitely has a very certain acquired attention for people that want it. And yeah, I haven't read Trigger Warning, so I don't know, like, you know, how that one was about. But yeah, like, if like I do say, give it another shot. Read the first issue of Red Room, and if it's the same, then like, you know, I get it. I totally get it.
I'll go back and I'll check out Red Room. I actually think I have the trade, and I just haven't cracked it open because I was with Trigger Warnings. I was like, oh, no.
He made it a trade already. Damn, he's fast.
Yeah,
I think is it?
Yeah,
it's out on a trade.
Yeah,
Even
Fanta. That's a Fanta
even like the
graphics.
Marvel stuff, even like the
Believe so.
Grand Design stuff went like right to trade.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he
Well-
is going to be at Heroes Con. He's at Heroes Con every year, so maybe I'll just get it signed by him or get something else signed.
Well, the thing
every time I
also-
go to his table, though, he's always like either at a panel or he's gone. Like he's like flitting around somewhere else. So
Yeah,
The
he's
thing
a
about
huge
Pittsburgh, too-
record lover.
yeah,
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And I want a big hip hop head. The thing you have to remember about him too is that he is such in control about the production schedule for his stuff. I mean, he really like, the quality of the paper, like he dictates, and he did this with his stuff at Marvel too. If they didn't, he was like, I don't need to write this, so if like you can do it the way I want to do it, or we're just not going to do it. And so it does not, like, he's got everything done by the time the first issue gets published. And so they can, like, the trade is just ready. So like he is very, the production process is almost to him as beloved as the actual drawings. If you hear him talk, according to him. So I'm
just looking over and I was like, there's my X-Men Grand Design.
Yeah.
The books.
Steve, I'm trying to remember if you were with me though, but there was a music-oriented panel at Baltimore Comic Con. I'm trying to remember if you were with me or not. So if what I say,
I didn't attend. If you went to that panel, I didn't attend that panel with.
Okay, but there was a panel with Ed talking about hip hop, adapting it for comics, with Pete Russell talking about opera, adapting it for comics, and Tim Truman, who has been a major illustrator of Grateful Dead content for years, and just how similar they were in how they approached making those adaptations. It's one of those panels it had the worst moderator, and Tim Truman took over, which was great. But that was one I just wish that was out there somewhere on audio or video, because it really was interesting how, and that's a very specific area, of comics. I mean, I think the only ones that don't work on adaptations that are, are pretty high quality or stuff like Love and Rockets and Phonogram that have that vibe.
God.
Yeah.
But I wish.
Brothers.
Yeah, I just wish that particular panel was there, because it was just amazing seeing Pisker and P. Craig Russell, and they're just like, they're totally in sync with how they approach things, and it was really fascinating. Worst moderator though, she was terrible. Worst moderator.
Oh.
Okay, well, let's move on. Every once in a while, we get something in the mail or something at a store that we kind of want to show off. And we retracted it a little bit because there's been points where it was about a half an hour long we were doing it. But we still want to show off our Geek Gets. And Steve, do you have a Geek Get? Mr.
I actually have. I have two technically. One is just an honorable mention Geek Get, I think, and that is Sonic currently has Teen Titans Go toys. So this one is a Beast Boy pterodactyl glider. It's basically just green, so that's why it's Beast Boy. And then Cyborg, it's like a cyborg like disc slinger or something. And I don't know, whatever. It's ridiculous. It's silly, but if you've got a Sonic, hey, guess what? You get some to play with. These will come. These are coming your way, Bill. By the way,
you're kidding me. Oh, you're so
yours.
You're so sweet. Thank you.
But my real Geek Get, and actually, Bill, you might be having the same thing. So I'll look at my other Geek Get instead. Tommy Dakota by Dave Ebersole.
Oh no, I had something else prepared. I had.
Oh, I've got that too, but I'll let you talk about it.
Well, that was my Geek Get.
Talking about Kickstarters, Dave Ebersole's Tommy Dakota and the shooting at the Burgundy 10.
I do have it here.
By himself with art by Vinny Rico. So excited to get this. Just got this in the mail, and it also came with a whole bunch of stuff. It's got a coaster. It's got a print. It's got I think there's a sticker in there. There's just a whole bunch of stuff in there. So, I was just so excited to see it. I've been waiting for this for a while from Dave. So, yay! And it's signed, so I'm happy. So. Thanks, Dave.
All right, over to Caleb. Do you have any?
So I have a
Get?
Geek Get, but it's a very specific Geek Get. I got a new vest.
Ooh.
Yep, that's my Geek Get.
Oh, that's pretty
it.
sleek. That's pretty
Yeah.
damn sleek. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's
I'm a-
I like how it
I'm a
doesn't
vest
have
guy.
sleeves.
I'm a
Yeah,
I'm a
no,
vest
it-
guy,
no-
so I like that.
no sleeves. Yeah, so normally our Geek Gets are very nerd related and stuff like that. Comics, etc., action figures. I got a new leather vest. There's a really cool bar that we started going to. They have a night on Saturdays. It'll be worn on that night. Yeah.
It's leather nerd. You're
I
like
just-
leather
I
geek,
hate-
and shows off the sleeves.
If you went into our closet, and this really sounds sad, and kinky, but it's a nice gear. It's a nice gear that neither of us fit in anymore. For my Geek Gets, I just wanted to show that don't always just get DC stuff. Well, I'm going to talk about this because this is what I was anticipating that Steve would show. This is the Incredible Hulk, but it's not. It's Goofy. This is one of the variant covers that they're putting out for every other issue of Spider-Man. I know it doesn't exactly make sense, but these are the Marvel variants. And again, if this is about the umpteenth time we promoted this, if you join Disney Movie Insiders, you get lots of free stuff. So that's something that we both picked out. But I just wanted to show off one of the toy gets this week. And this is the Spider-Woman Kenner Marvel Legends on 4. Oh, yeah, thank you there. So you see that this is done in the style of the classic Secret Wars characters or Star Wars at the 3.75 inch. Unfortunately, this line is going on moratorium. This is the last wave for the foreseeable future. They're calling it a hold. They're not calling it a cancellation of the line. So I don't know exactly what that means, but they say they're going to be back at some point. Probably the big highlight of this wave is the Ghost Rider with the motorcycle. If you've seen that, it's pretty incredible. But this is the last in the Kenner Marvel Legends lines at the 3.75. And all I can say is 1979 Billy Z would have gone crazy for it, and 2023 Billy Z is still kind of excited for it. So that's my geek.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap this show up, and when we wrap an episode of the Comic Book Bears up, we do so with a segment we call the Woofs of the Week. In the bear community, if you find a fellow attractive, you woof at him. And we do something similar. We woof at something which may be a comic book, maybe a film, maybe a TV program, maybe a charitable initiative, anything under the sun that we think you, fair listener, or possibly viewer, may be interested in sampling. I'll start, as I always do, with Steve. Steve, what is your Woof of the Week?
Well, I don't know where else to throw this in here. I do have an actual woof, but I just wanted to give a shout out to Ric Flair, Magic 8 Ball. This is a codename Ric Flair by Scout Comics. Just put out this really ridiculous one shot by Hake, Lorero, and Hopkins. And yeah, pick it up. It's just weird. I don't know. It's fun if you like wrestling. But my actual woof goes out to two major sci-fi franchises that just had their season or series finales this week. Both Star Wars The Mandalorian, with an incredible way of wrapping up season 3, and also Star Trek Picard. And also Star Trek Picard with basically a season, I guess season 8 or season 9, whatever the other season, the unaired season of Next Generation was. This is it. This is an incredible way to go out. It is an incredible way to say goodbye to these characters from the original Star Trek TNG series, and also kind of gives free reign to a newer generation of characters. So good job to both of those massive studios for giving me so much joy this week, and lots of tears and lots of emotions and lots of like inner Steve going geeky crazy. So thank you.
All right, cool. Now, as our guest, Zach, is there something that you might want to signify? It can be your own Kickstarter. You can push it again, but do you have something that would be your Wolf of the Week?
It's got to be this book called Voyages by Image Comics. Voyage. It's like Voyage without the E at the end, with an IS. done by Sumei Kesjin. Like, dude, her books, like her artwork is fantastic. And it was just a 5-issue miniseries that just wrapped up, and the covers look great. I mean, there's even a crossover thing that she did with Spawn, but the cover to the first issue is actually, let's see,
Nice.
yeah, she that's like the geek pick for me to give a shout out to, because this stuff is brilliant. It's brilliant stuff. So yeah, Voyage is one of them.
All right,
It's
cool.
on my pull list. So,
all right, over to Caleb. Caleb, what is your woof of the week?
yeah, my woof of the week goes out to the current issue of the Arkansas Times. I don't know if you guys can see this, but the cover is why it gets the woof of the week, because it features Miss Major. If you don't know who Miss Major is, there's a incredible documentary on I think it's on Prime that you can find it, but it talks about her and her life. Miss Major she's a black trans woman. She's an older black trans woman, as you can tell. Not too old. She'll kick my ass for saying that. But she was at the Stonewall riots, so she was there. She experienced that, and she has dedicated her life to activism, as you might imagine. But mainly, she has moved here to Little Rock. The reason she's in the Arkansas Times, she lives here in Little Rock now, where I'm at. And she's working on some prison reform stuff, which I'm a lawyer. For those of you who might be new to the show, I'm an attorney, and this so when I combine these two things with the law and activism, it's very much in my wheelhouse. So she's working on some prison reform, especially for trans women, and I think that's really, really bold and cool and needed and necessary, especially happening in a state like Arkansas, which is not necessary. Which, number one, is expanding the prison system right now, but is also not necessarily doing so in a way that acknowledges that trans women exist. So kudos to Arkansas Times for putting Miss Major on the front page, and go learn about Miss Major. Really cool person.
All right, cool. So you're making me feel, Caleb, like that I should also say I'm a lawyer, but I'm much more of a corporate shill than Caleb will ever be. So we'll just put that to rest. So I'm going to go to my wolf of the week. And Steve, I believe you have a graphic that you can put up.
I do.
And
if it will
I
pop
was
up.
totally not anticipating watching this show, and I got hooked. And this is Lucky Hank with Bob Odenkirk as the title character, Hank Devereaux Jr. It's on AMC Plus, and what Hank is, the title, is a middle-aged college professor in an underfunded college in Pennsylvania, and he is the head of the English department. The tenured professors that are under him in the English department are all pretty friggin' bizarre, but it makes for great storylines. Some of the other members of the cast is Muriel Enos plays his wife Lily, and if you're a fan of Reno 911, you have Cedric Yarbrough in a very different role from Jones in this. The show is co-created by, and these are two guys that I wouldn't necessarily put together, but it works really well. You have Paul Lieberstein, who's basically mostly known for The Office, and Aaron Zellman, who's known for Damages. And this kind of is like the midpoint between The Office and Damages in a sense. Somehow they found a really nice marriage with that. It's based on a book which I'm really interested in reading now, Straight Man by Richard Russo, about his experiences as a college professor in a Pennsylvania town who's going through a midlife crisis. But it's 5 episodes have aired so far. I imagine anybody who's in education on the collegiate level will appreciate something that happens within these 5 episodes. It's darkly funny. There's moments where you just feel like you shouldn't be laughing, and yet you are, even at other people's misfortunes. And behind that, though, he is also someone who lived in the shadow of a father who was a very prominent figure within academia and also within the literature world. And where does that person fit when the father retires? So there's some interesting things that are both on top and also under the surface in this series, and I can't speak highly enough. I absolutely loved it. I never watched Better Call Saul, and I saw maybe 2 episodes of Breaking Bad. So if Bob Odenkirk is this good, half as good as he is in this, I think I gotta watch Better Call Saul at some point.
Oh, dude,
he is.
Better Call Saul is great.
So, but he really blew me away. He's 70% of what I'm recommending this. It's really deft, and also just in terms of other cast members, Oscar from The Office is here in a very different role as well. So that's another fun thing. And like I said, it's darkly funny. It really is. There's nothing in any of the content you see within the 5 episodes that you would even classify as comedic, and yet are laughing all the way through. So Lucky Hank, that's my Wolf of the Week.
Awesome.
Zach, thank you very much for joining us again.
Thank
Best
you.
of luck over these next few weeks in your campaign. And if you've joined us for the first time, or if you've joined us many times in the past, again, we are the Comic Book Bears podcast. You can find us on the Twitter and the Tumblr and the Instagram as Comic Book Bears. You can find us on the Facebook as Comic Book Bears Podcast. If you want to write to us, you can do so by sending an email to comicbookbears@gmail.com. If you want to listen to us, you can do so by downloading us through Apple Podcasts, listening to us through Stitcher Radio, or many of the other podcasting platforms. And if you are watching us tonight through Facebook Live, thank you for joining us. If you are watching us later on YouTube, thank you for joining us in that fashion. And please please subscribe and leave a good review, because that's all good stuff. Until next time, I'm Bill Zanowitz.
I'm Steve Morey.
I'm Caleb Alexander McKenzie.
You're going to hear a woof and an explosion. If you're listening to the audio version, we'll be back real soon. Take care, everyone.
Go
See
check
ya.
out Voyage
Bye.
on Kickstarter.
Peace out.
Yes, over there.